Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, we have three gorgeous speakers joining our session today. But before our discussion, I want to introduce some operation about QA time. So how I can show the slide? Yeah. So you can use your cell phone to scan the your code, and then you can ask some question to our speaker after our conversation. Yeah. So yeah, just use your cell phone to scan the code. Okay. No worries. We will show this code on each slide below. Okay, let me quickly introduce myself and why I'm here to moderate this session. My name is Cassie, and I'm from Plug and Play Japan. My responsible is for our whole activities in Osaka. And I also covered energy industry and the smart city industry over the Japan. And actually, our Osaka office's mission is to support the startups, business, and to support the entrepreneurs to start their business in Osaka region. And we also support local government, local universities, and corporate companies in Osaka. So actually, I always consider and discuss with our Osaka host stakeholders about how we can build a sustainable innovation hub in Osaka and enable to let it be more globally. So today, I'm so happy and I'm so excited we have three gorgeous speakers. With their global background and with their global view, maybe they could give us some advice that what Osaka should do. Okay. Actually, I want to cut the short introduce for their background because I would like them to introduce themselves more detail about their innovation activities. So could we start from Mr. Benjamin?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. All right, so hi, I'm Benjamin T. I'm from the National University of Singapore, and I'm one of the unit leads in the NUS Enterprise, a department that was started about more than 20 years ago to look at how we can kickstart entrepreneurial education and also startup activity in Singapore. I also lead the Blocks Anyone initiative, which is a global initiative with 9 offices across 6 countries. And myself, I'm an inventor at heart, and I'm also a material scientist and electrical engineer. Did my PhD at Stanford and started 2 companies. And I was called by the management to see if we can create even more startups within a university framework and actually also for Singapore to increase the activities in entrepreneur education and also startup founding. So I've done, the slide moved to University of Singapore, so I'll give you a quick overview. We are more than 100 years old, university, started in 1905. We have now today 300,000 alumni all over in over 100 countries. So we are also a people network builder over the many years that we have since we started. We are well ranked, top 8 last year, this year, since we're coming to the close globally by QS ranking. And I think that in many ways we are trying to build a microcosm of entrepreneurial education activities within the university, but I think there's a broader impact across society. So if we go to the next slide, we have over the last 20 years developed various programs to kickstart a virtuous cycle. I think Kathy was mentioning about sustainability. Most sustainable ecosystems have a cyclical nature. What we're trying to do is to close the loop and the circuit between having an idea all the way to building a company and having the company contribute back to the ecosystem, right? So we've developed the NOC program, which is an undergraduate education program, sending them to ecosystems around the world, like Silicon Valley. We started a GRIP program, which is a graduate research innovation program to help our researchers commercialize their ideas and inventions. And we have Blocks Anyone, which is a global platform to help businesses go global and grow. My hope is that eventually, as we create these various pieces of the ecosystem, they will form a sustainable, healthy ecosystem that is self-sustaining and contribute to create global impact. Japan is a very exciting place to actually have this kind of initiatives, and I'm very happy to share what I learned over the many years in the university in Singapore. I think that should be the last slide. If,
Yeah,
right.
it's the last one.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Benjamin. So next to Kato-san, could you introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Thank you for having me today. My name is Michiko Kato. I'm partner at Woven Capital. Could you click? Yeah, thank you. I'm a venture capitalist. Woven Capital is a growth stage fund for Toyota Motor Corporation. Toyota has two funds, Toyota Ventures that covers early stage and Woven Capital that covers growth stage, meaning Series B and beyond. And we are a strategic fund, so we're constantly looking for cutting edge technologies and great startups that have a potential to work with Toyota. And we want to bring value by bringing Toyota's technology, process, and business units to expand the collaboration during our investment period. And as an investor and previous startup operator, I'm passionate about working with leading entrepreneurs who are trying to build a future of mobility. Before joining Woven Capital, I worked at a startup called Abeja, which is an AI startup which got listed this year. That was a very hard experience for me, and we had a lot of challenges that we had to go through. So I would like to leverage my operation experience and investment experience to become value-add investor to startups. I was born in Hiroshima, lived in Tokyo, educated both in Japan and the US, and I'm currently working with startups around the globe. Woven Capital is a global fund, so we invest in companies in the US, Europe, Asia, and Japan. In Japan, we invested in a company called Will, which is an autonomous e-wheelchair company in Japan. And we're hoping to make more investment in Japan, hopefully in Osaka at some point. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Okay, thank you, Kato-san. So finally, Jordan, could you tell us some more about you?
Of course. Nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Jordan Fisher, co-founder and chairman of Zechitomo. So I grew up in New York. And honestly, New York feels a lot more like Osaka than it does Tokyo in terms of the vibe and the hustle and the energy. So I always love visiting here. Thanks for having us today. I moved to California for university. I was very geeky growing up. 20 years ago, I was staying up all night to program AI in the video games that I was programming on the computer that I built. So as a very geeked out person, of course, Japan was on my radar. The race car for AI in the day was video games, and the largest kind of video game industries were in California and Japan. So that's why I went to college in California, started studying Japanese, had some fortunate opportunities to come out and do internships in Japan, fell in love with the culture. I didn't have culture shock so much. Everything was just better than I expected. And I had culture shock going back to the States when I was like, wow, why is the food so bad and people so loud? And anyway, so after graduating, I decided to come out to Japan. Despite being an engineer by background, and most of my computer science fellow grads in California went off to Silicon Valley, I was definitely the weird one who came to Japan and started to work in finance in 2008 when obviously there was the Lehman crisis. But I think when you're in you face adversity, that's obviously a room for growth and a lot of opportunities for myself to do so. I worked at JP Morgan in Tokyo for several years, building out kind of the electronic trading platforms, the fixed income business, ultimately doing sales trading. So I traded Japanese equities during Abenomics and rebuilding our electronic trading business at the time. And then when my first daughter was born, so I have two daughters, 6 and 7 years old. They're my ventures that are half American, half Japanese ventures. Right? So I very much want building a global future for that. I think at that point I really took a step back. Values changed, and how I can contribute the most value for the future. And I launched Zechitomo, which is a marketplace for local services. So other than Tokyo, Osaka is the next largest. We cover all 47 prefectures in Japan. But if you wanted to hire a plumber, a photographer, a personal trainer, you want to renovate your home, these are all the different types of services. We cover over 600 types of jobs all across Japan. We've been running this for several years now. The first 5 years are life and death as a CEO. How do you solve today's problems so you don't die tomorrow? But then we reached a point of scale. I've hired out and built up the team, close to 100 people. And last year I transitioned to chairman, where I'm now getting more involved in the startup ecosystem and try to help build a future that I want to live in, that I want my kids to grow up into. So very excited to be here today. And I'll pass it back to you, Kathy.
Yeah. Actually, I'm a little surprised because I'm the same reason I come to Japan. Yeah, I love the video game. I love the anime, manga. Yeah. So, but anyway, okay. It's not the main topic today. Yeah. So actually, we have more than 50 minutes to discuss how we can build an innovation hub in Osaka. But I think maybe before we discuss it directly, we could share. Maybe you guys could share some experiences of successful use case over the world you have seen so far. Yeah, just give us some hints about how we can build the innovation hub in Osaka, and what is the common points of the successful points about the global innovation hub. So maybe we could start from Mr. Benjamin, because I think Singapore is a really, really successful case, because Singapore is a top 6, I think it's a top 6 innovation country over the world. So could you introduce some innovation activities in Singapore, and why Singapore, and when in Singapore just focusing on the innovation?
Right. Oh, thanks, Kathy. Really delighted to be here with the various panelists and very different backgrounds. In some way, we almost represent the ecosystem, what the ecosystem needs, right? We need entrepreneurs, which is people. We need infrastructure, I think, which corporates have. And then we need the risk capital, which I think happens to be that Kato-san has both. I think it's important. So the way I think about startup ecosystem over the last 20 years plus that we've built in Singapore is really about 3 things: people, or talent, infrastructure, and capital, in particular risk capital. So we started, well, the NUS story started from people. Right? We train people, we educate people, and I think that in the end, what matters in a startup is about the people and the talent, the ideas that they bring, and the never say die attitude. Right? So we wanted to have that kind of culture. In many ways, 20 years ago, we were extremely risk averse. I think much like Japan, we wanted an MNC job. Most people didn't know about what startup is. Compared to the Bay, where it was more advanced. So 20 years ago, we started sending undergraduate students to ecosystems like Silicon Valley, and that was our first stop. After about 10 years of doing that, we have now 3,000 over undergrads experiencing the culture, the entrepreneurial spirit. We came back, and about 1/3 started companies. So we're now 1,000 entrepreneurs, and then we realized we don't really have the infrastructure, the facilities for them. So we started Block 71, which was a study in 2011, to house these entrepreneurs within a very tight space so that the ideas and exchange can flow very quickly. And this was basically this initiative. It's called Block 71. The reason it's called Block 71 is that it's actually a factory block. It used to be a light factory that produces goods, like small goods. And the idea was that could we create a platform that instead of generating goods, we create ideas and companies out of this block. And so that's how Block 71 came to be. And it's operated by the National University of Singapore. I think the reason we wanted this was because for 10 years, we've been helping to educate talent. Right? And we need to house them. And then the next piece is capital, risk capital. And roughly about 10 years ago, at about the same time, the government and many agencies related to the government started to invest in startup. And this was probably, dot-com era, post-dot-com boom. And then there was a financial crisis. It was just right after the financial crisis. We started to encourage a lot of risk capital to come into Singapore. Favorable tax environment, startups don't pay tax for 3 years, a lot of different government initiatives. Right? So we have these 3 pillars with a very supportive foundation layer which the government has set up, the framework. So these are the few pieces I think in any ecosystem you will need to find. And they should be operating at fairly high levels, highly networked, and very open, which is what Singapore have. So I think this would be some of the things we've done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And Kato-san, how about you?
Yes, so I think I represent investor in this class, and as a mobility investor, and we're focusing on the growth stage, so we are looking for companies that are growing and scaling. And if I think 50% of our deal flow come from Silicon Valley still. Naturally, the ecosystem is still very, very powerful there, and we happen to find a lot of exciting deals there. But I think it's changing, and we see more and more deals come from areas like Boston and New York. Boston is trying to become a next Silicon Valley. New York is trying, created something called Silicon Alley that is similar to Silicon Valley. But I see more and more diversity in terms of the geographies when it comes to U.S. market. Outside the U.S., we are looking at different regions, but especially I would like to point out that Israel is such a unique economy for startup. Since Israel local market is very small, all the startups in Israel are looking at global market. That is quite unique, especially looking at, from Japanese perspective, because in Japan, the local market is very big, so it's really hard to think about global before, doing the product market fit here in local. I can't argue which is better or not, but it's very different, and I think in certain areas like security, intelligence, cyber, and healthcare equipment, like in some areas, Israel seems to be a very exciting economy, and which we can potentially learn from.
Okay, thank you, Kato-san. And finally, I want to ask Jordan. I think you started your business in Japan. I think you locate in Tokyo, right? So why you choose to start your business in Japan, and what do you think about the Tokyo's innovation environment? Yeah, just give us some.
Sure. No, thank you. So, I started my company in Tokyo because I happened to be living in Tokyo, and I happened to meet a co-founder in Tokyo, and I happened to be facing the problem that I experienced with my life in Tokyo. So if I happened to have been living in Osaka and met a co-founder in Osaka, then I probably would have started a business in Osaka. So it's not that I was saying, hey, I want to start a company, what has the best infrastructure, what is the best ecosystem? It's not that at all. And I think, to echo some of the points about it being around the talent, it's all around the people that are there and how to actually make that happen. And so, yeah, in my case, people start businesses for different reasons, but I started my business to solve a challenge that I was facing, and ultimately to solve a larger problem in society and to improve the productivity for Japan's economy and many more things. And so, to answer your question, it was just, that was the environment I was in. And I think that I also had access to global information. So I could read the articles on TechCrunch about what was happening in Silicon Valley, right? And I could apply that to Tokyo, even if I wasn't hearing that in the local Tokyo ecosystem. And so I think in today's day and age, if you have access to global information, you know how things are being done in Israel and Silicon Valley and New York and Boston and Tokyo, and you can execute anywhere you want. You can talk to most of, in the last couple of years, investor calls have been done on Zoom, right? And we've closed many that way. And so I think that it's important to have all these different parts of the ecosystem, and it definitely helps. But yeah, if you can have access to the whole world, right? It's just where you happen to be based and where you can actually have a like-minded co-founder. And yeah, the only other thing I'd add is just maybe the speed at which you can move. If there's one piece about the ecosystem. So if you're talking to an investor and it takes 6 months, or you're talking to a corporate and it takes 6 months, that's an eternity, right? Like as a startup, you need to operate in days and weeks, not months and years. And so I think the more people you have in that ecosystem that are able to move and take risk and move quickly and iterate quickly and support people in moving quickly, that's just going to be, the most valuable part.
Okay. I just think about even Singapore and Israel and Tokyo. I think the common keyword will be the go to global. We can access the global information, and we can catch some global trends. It's really maybe this one keyword is really important for the global innovation ecosystem. But how about another common point? Do you think?
Other common points.
Yeah.
So first, I'm actually curious. In this room, how many people understand English kind of at the speed that we're speaking?
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
So
30%. What will we translate it?
Yes.
Right? It's AI.
Because, I mean, yeah, to go global, English is the global language, right?
Okay.
It can be broken English, and that's fine. But I do think that also gives you access to information. It gives you access to different ways of thinking, and that is really important. But, I mean, yeah, beyond that, to go global, it's that risk and the ability to speed and to compete on a global scale. So if you're starting a business in Osaka today, you shouldn't be benchmarking, and you want to go global, you shouldn't be benchmarking other companies in Japan. You should be benchmarking the startups in Silicon Valley, the startups in Singapore, the startups in other parts of the world that are going after this. And how do you build the most aggressive plan to get there as soon as possible, right? The idea of taking on venture capital is to accelerate, right? And that's why you go through the J curve is you should be saving years, right? You should be saving decades and accelerating in the future. And so, yeah, I think just holding global benchmarks and doing so with a globally kind of global culture in terms of your mindset. And I think there's so much space to do that in Japan. And so many people in Japan, from my experience, want to work in an environment like that. Right? Which is why I think when I was hiring, we were considered one of the most Silicon Valley style startups in Japan, just because our culture was a little bit more Western. But you can take the best of both worlds and you can apply that. And people want to have ambition if they're told they're able to have that. And so just enabling that is paramount for me.
Yeah. How about Benjamin?
You know, I think Singapore being extremely small, I think what you mentioned, global is always right at the beginning, we have to start thinking about it for scale. Right? And I think that in any case, any ecosystem that wants to achieve impact is about scale. And having that global mindset is quite critical. I think that, frankly speaking, I was just having a very nice conversation with Jordan this morning. I think there's a lot of raw potential in Japan. I'm very excited. I think if you look at, I was just reading about Osaka, if you look at how, you know, the way it's structured, there's many conglomerates here, actually, a lot of, you know, highly valued companies here, right? There's a growing startup ecosystem. It's near the coast, right? Being near the coast usually helps the ideas of exchange. And I think that if we can somehow unlock this communication between large corporates, entrepreneurs, and also venture risk capital, I think it could ignite a very vibrant ecosystem here, right? And I think we mentioned there's probably a good potential for deep technologies, given the very strong industrial base that Osaka already have. So I'm very excited about the possibilities here. I'd love to see how we can help grow the ecosystem and connect it globally. Right? I think language no longer a barrier if you have this kind of device that does almost near instant translation. Right? So I think then what's next is that the people themselves must be willing to embrace the international nature of business in order to achieve the scale that they aspire for. Right? So there has to be a certain aspiration to drive them. Right? So how can we do that? I suspect that probably through education. And the nice thing is, in Osaka, I think there was at least 29 very good universities here. I think there's a potential for universities, academics to play a very important role to nurture next generation talent.
Yes, actually we have, I think maybe 55 universities within the Osaka region.
Yeah.
How about Kato-san? Yeah. What do you think about it?
About the global.
About some common points about the global innovation hub they have. Yeah.
Yes, I think the key points are already covered, but I agree that access to English and global knowledge, I agree, is crucial. That I mentioned, Israel as a great example of attracting a lot of capital and talents from the rest of the world. And if I go to the big tech show in Israel, everything is done in English, and I can communicate with everyone. But even in Tokyo, like in such events, non-Japanese speakers have very difficult, big difficulties communicating with local startups, which is unfortunate. So I know as a Japanese speaker and somebody who grew up in Japan, it's still very, very challenging for me. But it is an important, English is an important tool, whether directly or through the device. So yeah, you need to think about, the global market as opposed to the local ones as you scale the business.
Yes. We definitely need the global mindset. Yes, I think. Okay, let me go to the next question. Yeah, it's about some more details about the role of the local government, the university within the region, and some large company representing this region. So what do you think the role of the local government, and university, and large company? Yeah, and because I think the startups and the VCs, they are not the main actor to form the innovation hubs, because they are participants. Yeah, if you have an attractive innovation hub, the VCs will come and the startup will come. So I think maybe the responsible for how to formation of the innovation hubs, I think it's a role of the local government and the university and the large companies within the region. What do you think about it, Mr. Benjamin?
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we covered a few of these points. Like I said, I believe that the government plays a critical role in incentives, right? So it's about incentivizing the general population and companies, businesses to think about investing in startups. So they set the framework or rules of engagement, right, for people, for the stakeholders. University is about talent and it's about experimentation. I think that in my team, I tell them that since we are about helping startups, we have to think like a startup, right? So having the ability to iterate quickly on new programs and trying and willing to accept that you may not have 100% outcome, right? And that you don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough is a critical mindset change in I would say many Asian cultures, right? And Japan is probably one of the I would say in terms of risk taking, it doesn't, it's not up there, right? In terms of risk taking. So how do we change this? I think universities have the ability to provide a safe space for students, academics, potentially businesses to experiment and take a bit of risk, right? Local companies, VCs, those are more, I would say, they are the players, as you mentioned. So they are the pillars of risk capital. And I think that it would take roughly 5 to 10 years for any impact to be really felt when you're doing ecosystem building at scale. So my view is that governments have the ability to take a very long-term view, right? I mean, you have to look at 10, 50, potentially 100 years.
Yeah.
But at the same time, universities can iterate quickly and guide the conversation around policies, right? What will work, what wouldn't work. We can't just import wholesale what worked in Silicon Valley or other ecosystems straight to a country with a very unique culture, unique language. So that piece has to be also explored, and well, what can we do to adapt, right, for Japan and Osaka in particular, right? I think there are many ingredients here. It's just like you're trying to, make a very nice dish. You have to have a few ingredients. I think Osaka has a lot of right ingredients for the combination to work. But you have to begin by experimenting, right? Willingness to take a bit of risk, right, and slowly encourage the general population to start thinking about, maybe I want to create something new, right? And this has to start, I would say, mostly from the younger talent, just because they are a bit more, I would say, easily able to adapt a bit more quicker. It's just how the brain works, actually. So as you age, you take less risks. It's kind of like the nature of humans, right? So how can we encourage younger population to take a bit of risk, have the older population who may have a wealth of experience guide them and avoid some of the mistakes. Because at the end of the day, startup ecosystem building is as much about success as it is about failure. So you need successful companies to set the, some kind of a goal or, for others to aspire to, right? And I'm very sure the Tomo could be one of them, right? The next unicorn in making. Right? And unicorns are important because, in Singapore, over the last 11 years, we have helped 12 unicorns, 3 of which we have significant interest because they are from NUS, and we funded them, we seeded them. I think in Japan, I don't know, I think we said 5, right? But I think this could accelerate very quickly. It's not about unicorn and about money making, but unicorn gives you a sense of scale. Because if you have $1 billion in valuation, you can hopefully, experiment, take more risk, you can hire more people. So that's how it shouldn't be seen as the be all and all, right? It's not about creating unicorns, but creating the pieces I mentioned, talent, the risk capital, and infrastructure.
Okay, could you give us more details about how many unicorns from Block 71 or group?
Also, we have 12. We have helped 12 in our network. Yeah, 3 of which were from NUS founders who were NOC, National University Overseas College. So they were basically already trained in entrepreneurial education, and they became the unicorns.
Okay.
Yeah, so 12. Not too bad, given our size, where we have 6 million maximum right now, maybe 5.8 million people.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And the next question is for Kato-san. I think the Woven Capital is a CVC in Toyota Group. So what do you think about the large companies' function?
Yes, I'm a strong believer in open innovation, and also for startup, there's a lot of things that large companies like Toyota and others can bring value to, and especially I felt this when I was working at Abeja, and it's a B2B AI service company, and we always wanted to scale the revenue. That's all the thing that we wanted to scale, and a lot of different investors offer different things. But CVC, who brought a business opportunity, was the most valuable thing that we had from a startup perspective. So if you want to do B2B, having enterprise sales and strong partnership with a large corporation has a huge value. And in Japan, normally the sales cycle takes longer, and the people relationship is important, and decision making is not necessarily super fast. So such support from large corporations and functions like CVC is tremendously valuable to startup. And for large corporation, most companies need innovation and breakthrough and access to new technology, and CVC and any sort of incubation function is a good way to attract great talents, younger talents, and access to knowledge around the world. So I think it's if done correctly, I think it's a very powerful tool both for startups and large corporations.
Okay, thank you. So finally, for Jordan, what kind of support from maybe from a local government you need? Yeah, if you want to be a unicorn.
Honestly, I think the best role of government or corporates or the different parts of the ecosystem is just to enable and support role models in the ecosystem, right? And so I think one of the best things that the government has done in the 15 years that I've been here was last year announcing the 5-year startup plan. It wasn't about any of the policies, and there's a lot of great things on that list that we'll get through, but it was for them going out and saying, it's now socially acceptable to join or run a startup. Japan's future need this. If any young people, they didn't say this part out loud, if any young people want to have a pension in 30 years, we need to innovate as a country, right?
Yeah, right.
And I think saying that out loud, and all of a sudden, like early on, half my job in hiring people was convincing the in-laws, right, that this is an okay place to work, right? And so the more people that can understand that starting a startup, joining a startup, committing, innovating in Japan is for the good of the future of the country and the world, then that's a wonderful thing. And the more that you have, to the point of having unicorns, if there were 10 unicorns in Osaka right now, right, then you would have all of a sudden all this capital flowing back through the ecosystem in different ways, right? Many millionaires of kind of early employees that are then starting their own company and have the operational experience or investing back in or starting funds, or they would be the ones speaking here. And so I think that in place of those existing role models, we need people to step up and become those role models. And the best role of government and other parts of the ecosystem is to support and basically kind of branding the founders as heroes, right? Bring them on stage like Hack Osaka is doing, and saying this is a good thing, right? Please feature these people more, support these people more, and have society, give them the role to brand them as heroes and make more people want to follow that path.
Yeah, thank you. And I just think about one more point is about the commitment, and maybe somebody have to take the leadership in this region. Actually, I want to share one successful case from Plug and Play. Yeah, actually, I think it's in 2016, a board member from Mercedes-Benz, they visit our Plug and Play, a tech center office in Silicon Valley, and they met, I think they met 3 startups in our office, and they invested one of them after the startup pitch. And for another 2 startups, the board member invest them by using their pocket money. And they go back to Germany, and I think maybe just 3 months later, immediately after that, they just told us they want to build a really big mobility innovation hub in Stuttgart. Yeah, it's a headquarter of Mercedes-Benz. Then they hope the really talent and excellent startup can come to the Stuttgart every year and do the pilot and do the project with Mercedes-Benz. We just created a program for them in the named Start Outback. Yeah, it's a really successful program. I think it's maybe more 7 years, yes. And right now, the program is not only Mercedes-Benz, we also have Porsche, and we also have Bosch, this car maker, and we also have a lot of OEM component manufacturing join our program. I think it become a really good cycle. A really good cycle that for the startup with mobility technology over the world, they go to Stuttgart for have what can I say, to seek an opportunity to collaborate with Mercedes-Benz every year. And the investors and the VCs and the large corporate companies go to the Stuttgart for the startups. Yeah, it's a really good successful case. Yeah, so I think it means somebody have to take the leadership if you want to really make an innovation hub in this region. You have to commitment. And what is a commitment from Mercedes-Benz? One thing is they build a really big team, and they select personal member from each business unit and supervised by CEO. It's one thing. And another thing is, if we select the startup from a program, it means you definitely have a chance to do the pilot with Mercedes-Benz. It's a rule. And right now, I think maybe every year we have over 100 pilots in Stuttgart, and we also have over 20, what can I say, implementation projects in Stuttgart. So yeah, I think it's about the leadership. So I think Singapore is also, the university takes the leadership to push the innovation ecosystem in Singapore. Is it right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned definitely in the university first of all, we are set up to create new things. So we are naturally already incentivized, right? We are judged by how many new ideas we can have. Are they patentable? Are they translatable? So there's already the incentive, right? I think working with large corporates who are willing to experiment is very critical, and I guess really Kathy is really looking at Kato-san to change the conversation, right? I think that's important. Right? If in the case where universities don't have the means to drive the conversation, maybe partnering with corporates could be one way, right? Mm-hmm. To try to change the government thinking, because at the end of the day, the government provides the foundation. Mm-hmm. So government plays a very important role in any ecosystem building. I mean, there are certain ecosystems that could be self-organic growth. I think Silicon Valley is one of them, which is very unique, right? Because a lot of the innovations, early stage transistor technology, semiconductor came from Silicon Valley, right? So for Japan, Osaka, you have to write your own story. It wouldn't be the way Silicon Valley developed. How could it be? I don't know, but I think having this kind of conversation at HEC Osaka, and I think the government and different stakeholders trying to create a space for discussion is a very good start. And certainly moving forward, really taking action, through the startup plan, very ambitious startup plan. I think they want an order of magnitude increase in the number of unicorns in 5 years, right? I mean, it's great. I love the ambition, and I think that if there's any place that has the ingredients, I think Osaka, Japan, has almost all these ingredients, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, let us shift to the third question. The third question is about the industrial focus point. Yeah, because if you want to try to build an innovation ecosystem, I think maybe we have to focus on some industrial area, because yes, I mentioned before that is doing everything. It means we cannot do everything. Yeah. So what is the approach to determine which industry we need to focus on, and how about the Singapore case?
Okay. Well, Singapore has traditionally we're basically catering to a lot of the services industry, right? And over the last 15 years, we have developed what we call a national plan, Research Innovation Enterprise Plan, where we invest $25 billion over 5 years, roughly about 2 to 3% of our GDP in innovation. I think that helps to kickstart a lot of different industries. We focus on quantum technology. We have many deep research going on in the university. I think that we have to start from scratch. I think that was the challenge, and we chose to invest in people. So we welcome anybody to come to Singapore, set up programs, all the scientists and so on. So we encourage a lot of the open conversation, right? So is this something that can be done in Osaka? I think probably the various deep industry corporates will have to play a very big role to set the path, right? Industry is about trends, so you probably want to think ahead, maybe 10 years from now. What's going to be so very important? And then focus on that. If you don't have focus, it's hard. But in Singapore, we have developed a system that guides us on the trends, right? I'm sure in Japan is probably very similar, right? Automotive is very big in Kansai region, right? I was just going out, there was a conference, Kansai 7.0. I was very intrigued what that means, right? So there is a lot of forward thinking already here. How do you communicate that? How do you translate that to things that stakeholders in Japan, outside Japan can understand? It's also critical.
Okay, thank you. How about Kato-san?
Yes, when we think about this topic for Osaka, we can't ignore the existence of Tokyo, right?
Yeah, right.
Since everything is so concentrated in Tokyo, it is, as a reality, it is very difficult for current entrepreneurs to find a reason to found a company in Osaka. And it's important to give them a reason and give them a strong incentive to found a company in Osaka. And I think that starts the ecosystem building, and it's a process, year-long process. And I personally want Osaka to become an innovation hub for deep tech, because Japan does need more support for deep tech. Japan needs more software too, but since we already gone through the wave of software boom, now everybody in the world is looking at deep tech as a new opportunities. And since Osaka has a lot of assets in academics, like Osaka University, Kyoto University, and so on, and it has large corporations, Panasonic, Kyocera, and so on. And a lot of our Dean centers are here. It has a strong battery tech production technologies here. So I think there's a strong chance if Osaka focuses on one specific topic, such as deep tech, if Osaka tries to do a lot of different things and try to copy Tokyo, I think that there's a less chance, because Tokyo is already very strong in terms of the ecosystem network.
Yeah.
So that's my personal wish.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, deep tech will definitely be a keyword for Kansai area because we have a lot of university. Yeah, Kansai is Osaka University and Kyoto University beside us. Yeah. Okay, finally, what's your view?
Yeah, so I don't know. I think founders are generally stubborn people that don't want to be told what to do.
Yeah, right.
And as such, for the people in Osaka, I wouldn't be like, this is what people should focus on.
Right.
I think focusing on the strength of the people that are already here, right? And so it's a function of if there are a lot of automakers, if there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies, then naturally you have more of that talent here. And naturally, if more people take that mentality to take on risk and start companies, and that's encouraged, then you'll have more of those types of startups happen here naturally. So I would focus on the cultural strengths. We were just talking about this backstage, but I think the hustle that you have in Osaka is best in Japan. And I think that I was trying to explain to Benjamin what nori means.
Nori.
Did you remember? Here you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So thank you. So I think that startups, you're working hard, you're having fun. It's a challenge, but you go all out in it. And so I think Osaka's setting that as a cultural strength, where people in Japan want to kind of work in that environment. And then that would be a great reason to come to Japan, to match with a co-founder, and to be part of an environment that really supports that. And the strengths are going to naturally come out from where there are more people talented with those types of hard skills, whether it be deep tech or whether it be other industries. But I think it's really going to be for the founders to figure out what they're passionate about within an environment that supports them.
Okay, I think definitely we have fun as a strong point in Osaka compared with Tokyo. Tokyo
Very
is
important,
a little boring.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, finally, we already have no time to discuss a lot about, but finally, should you guys give us some advice? Yeah, what should Osaka do from now on? Yeah.
Sure. So don't become another Tokyo. I think Tokyo is great for many of the things that make Tokyo what it is, but I don't think benchmarking Tokyo makes sense at all, right? One of the problems with Tokyo is that because you're able to build a business that's large enough, in Japan, you don't have these companies that have gone global. You don't have as many as we could. And so I think the whole theme for Hack Osaka and talking about a global innovation hub is if you're going to do something global, just building a business just in Osaka, maybe it's hard to build many unicorns. And so thinking more global from day one, using the strengths of the culture that's here, and being that ambitious, instead of saying, hey, we're going to build something to beat some competitor in Tokyo, benchmark your competitors globally, right? Use your culture, build together the best team, and don't benchmark Tokyo.
Okay, don't benchmark with Tokyo. And so next, Kato-san, what is your view?
I strongly agree with the current message, and also don't benchmark other regional cities like Fukuoka, Sapporo. Recently we have a lot of innovation initiative all over, but we don't want one of those. And I really want Osaka to be super edgy, super focused on specific themes, because as mentioned, entrepreneurs are stubborn people who greedily, who has agreed to look for new opportunities, and Osaka needs to provide unique opportunities, and I think that's going to foster several future unicorns that covers global business opportunities. So that'll be my
Thank you. Okay, finally, I want to change my question. How Osaka can collaborate with Singapore?
Right, well, come to Block 71. Right, I think Singapore is always very open. I think there's a lot of different programs that we can build together, co-build, and I'd love to hear how we can help the various stakeholders in Osaka, right, develop their own programs, right, and work with my team. I'll be happy to discuss, but I think that being open is number one criteria, right, to be willing to try and experiment, right, and Singapore, in some ways, was a startup. I mean, we built essentially from scratch. We were, You know, we've only gained independence 1965. You know, in a very short span of time, we've kind of reached a certain level of development that I think is somewhat leading in Asia, and we're willing to experiment. So Osaka has all the examples, and hack is named Huck, very well named, right? Have the hacker mentality, try to change things a little bit, see if it breaks, doesn't break, you know, keep doing it.
Yeah,
right. That's important.
Yeah, make more communication with Singapore. Okay, finally we have 5 minutes for the QA time. I will pick up your question to our speakers. Just wait a minute. Okay, let me check. Okay, the one question is, okay, maybe it's for Jordan, I'm not sure. Is there any specific city that Osaka can benchmark, do you think?
Again, I think when it's a startup, you want to be your own identity. And so, I mean, I've sometimes thought about Osaka as kind of the Boston to New York,
right.
Tokyo, right? If New York is like Tokyo, then Osaka can be like Boston in the US, given that there's a larger population in New York than Boston. There's more capital and there's more kind of corporates in New York, but Boston is a large city, a few hours by train, right? Maybe a little bit further because we don't have the Shinkansens on the East Coast. But I think, again, with its own domain strengths, right, a lot of the kind of biotech companies coming out of there, a lot of the research, because they have strong universities. So I do see some parallels with Boston, but I would, again, encourage Osaka to build on its own unique strengths and identities, and stand out.
Yeah, maybe it is not benchmark with other city, it's collaborate with other city, right?
I mean, collaborate where there's room for collaboration, but yeah, I mean, shoot for the stars by yourself, and
Okay, thank you.
I think Montreal is another great example as the second largest city, and until then, Canada is, Toronto was everything, but Montreal became the second largest city, similar to Boston. So I think there are a lot of great examples around the world who became the next Silicon Valley, next Tokyo, next innovation hub in the country. So
Okay,
I like
thank
that.
you. Thank you. Okay, then next question I think is for Benjamin. Yeah. And okay, it's an important question that how can entrepreneurships be forested?
For
Yeah, to be,
fostered.
fostered.
How to encourage entrepreneurship, you know. Okay, so there's, again, education is two schools, right? Is it nature or nurture, right? That's the question. I think it's usually a mix. It's never sort of clear. Naturally, there will be people who have the genetic makeup to really try to, change things. But nature actually plays a very important role to help these kind of, budding entrepreneurs, right? I mean, you don't want to stop them, but you want to encourage it. And so therefore, it's both nature and nurture. And it happens in school, right? Whether like it or not, most of your education, most of the knowledge transfer happens in academic environment, right? And so therefore, having the right kind of educational content, experiential learning is very important for young minds. And not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur, I think, but everyone should have an entrepreneurial thinking and mindset. It will help them whether they are starting a company or in a big corporate. Having the ability to try to think out of the box is critical, and this has to come through education.
Okay, thank you. I think one more question for Benjamin is for, just wait a minute. Okay. System. So, and any difficulties you faced when forming the community at Block 71, and how did you handle them?
Oh, okay. So, well, full disclaimer, I didn't start Block 71, but I'm helping to shepherd it right now. Even today, we are figuring out ways to help the ecosystem grow, right? I think we have reached a certain scale, and once you're at a certain scale, you have to experiment with other ways to grow. So right now, there's a chance, right? I would think at a very early stage, there was very little resource given to us. I would say that having the right kind of educators and the stakeholders within the ecosystem is critical. So you have to find people that are willing to share and be very open about how you can avoid pitfalls, and build that trust within the community that is there to help them, right? It's a safe zone. So those are the challenge, because there's usually a lot of different players that may have certain negative impact on the ecosystem. So you kind of want to have at least a way to filter them out, and importantly, think global and bring advisors from all different cultures to build that community, right? Because if you want to be truly global, you have to start right at the beginning to have that global input. But then you need a team to shape it within your culture, right? So community building truly is what I think Silicon Valley has done really good at, is that the players there, there's certain trust, there's certain level of protection that you would expect from somebody that, like a VC, where, certain knowledge will not be shared, things like that, right? So those are the very details, but figuring out how to build a trusted space, within the ecosystem, within the community is very important.
Okay, thank you. Okay, finally, I have one question is for Kato-san. Okay, I think it's the last question. And I think we already maybe mentioned a lot of essence in this conversation, but yeah, Osaka has few VC compared to Tokyo. But how can Osaka be financially attractive to startups?
To startups.
Yeah, attractive to startups financially. Yeah, it's a difficult
question. So to address the first part, I understand that there are less VCs compared to the Tokyo, and I think a lot of Japanese VCs are not focused on one specific region. So based in Tokyo, but covering Osaka, that's the standard. So in order to attract more VCs, you need to have more startups, and it's a chicken and egg problem. And I think that is why, to Benjamin's point, that you need to partner with government, universities, and talents, and all combined, it becomes a powerful ecosystem. So it takes time. So we really need to start building an ecosystem. Then gradually there will be more VCs, more unicorns, and more. So I think it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And for startups, Osaka can be financially attractive by a lot of different incentives, I believe. Yesterday's session talked about some tax incentives, and I think that's one of the powerful tools. And as I mentioned, I think it's really important for startups to have a specific reason why it's based in Osaka. And because the entrepreneurs need to explain that to investors and employees, and it's venture-backed companies are different from one specific entrepreneurs. So I think it's more powerful to have Osaka provide a lot of different incentives and systems to attract startups.
Less competition just means that you're going to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and so I think there's a lot of financial reasons that can make sense as well.
Okay, thank you. But at the time, we have to finish our conversation. We already took 1 hour, over 1 hour. But thank you all. Yeah.
Thank you,
everyone.